We are back on Morningline. Thanks for joining us. Nick Barris along with Metro Vice Mayor Jim Shulman. Busy morning here in the city of Nashville. If you guys were paying attention, there was an active shooting situation in Antioch. This led to 3 employees being shot at the Smile Direct Club warehouse there on Antioch Pike. Injured. One of them is in critical, Jim. Another one, 2 are going to be, I think, probably discharged soon. The shooter in this case had an extended magazine on a semi-automatic handgun, was an employee, maybe on shift change. Who knows what the motivation was here. And as he left, Metro Police showed up. He refused to put the gun down, pointed it toward them. They exchanged gunfire, and he was shot and killed. The investigation is still going on, and so we can take some phone calls. I don't know if these calls are about that or something else. Sure. Ann had something else to talk about, but I know a lot of people may be interested in the issue of the shooting. Let's go to Ernest. Hey, Ernest. Good morning. Hi, Ernest.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I was listening to your show, and it was mentioned about mental illness.
Mental illness.
What I found out is, through my study, the government did a study, and there's over 1 million people in the United States with mental illness.
Oh, it's more than that.
I know, but I'm just using that small number.
I mean, there's millions with mental illness. Yeah, go ahead.
But here's my point. If these mental illnesses were caused by people with this problem, there would be more deaths, like mass shootings or just shootings. There would be more deaths occurring. But that's not the case. Most of the time, when these deaths occur, or mass shootings occur, it's the result of something that that person wants, and they can't receive it. So, looking at information here, it says that 19% of the people in the United States have mental illness. 4.1% have a serious mental illness. And 1 out of 12, or 8.5%, has something to do with substance abuse. So the numbers don't add up for the information that's given. So if possible, can we comment on that, or?
Sure. Well, I think the flaw in your reasoning there is that you're thinking that mental illness, if you're mentally ill, you're going to be violent. The vast majority of people who suffer from mental illness are not. They have depression. They're not violent. They don't turn to violence. So that's why those numbers don't correspond. I mean, just because you're mentally ill doesn't mean you're going to be violent. You can turn violent for a lot of reasons. But I will say mental illness can be a contributing factor, don't you think? In a lot of these cases, maybe this individual, he may have some type of mental illness, and it makes him less able perhaps to deal with whatever issue he had with a fellow employee or the company, and because he's mentally ill, can't process it the way a normal person does, he loses his temper, has anger, and grabs a gun. That could be it, but to assume that just because you're mentally ill, you're going to be violent, most are not. Most mentally illnesses are not.
No, but I think what he was trying, I think what Ernest was, at least what I got out of it was, yeah, not everybody who has a mental illness or has mental health issues is going to be violent.
Right.
But they should seek help, just like everybody else.
Sure.
And again, going back to the Simone Biles thing, it was pushed to the forefront, which was very good in the sense of take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health, just like you take care of your physical body. That's very important. Now, don't have all the details here. What made this individual snap and decide to take a gun with lots of ammunition into a factory? Or whether he had it or was coming in or whatever, what could we have done so we weren't talking about this?
Yeah, so seek the help and get, because the vast majority of the mass shootings, I would also say to Ernest's point, and I think he brings up an interesting point that people have thought of. The vast majority, if you look at them, especially the other ones here that just I'm going to name off the top of my head. Now, you could be someone rational, like I like to think Jim is, or I am, and you lose your cool because maybe you're jealous, or you come home and you find your wife with another man, and you lose your cool and you shoot that individual. You're a sane person who gets very angry at that moment and do it. That's different. But if you look at the mass shootings we've had here in the Davidson County area, and the 2 biggies over the last several years, okay, the Antioch Church shooting with Emmanuel Sampson and the Waffle House shooting with Travis Ranking, both of those individuals Okay, I'm not saying either of them are insane. Sampson was found guilty, will spend the rest of his life in, but both of those individuals are twisted and had real mental issues. Not insanity to that level, but they were not and are not normal people by any stretch of the imagination. And the vast majority of these mass shooters, if you look at them after the fact, there's some real stuff going on wrong inside their heads, okay? It's not like normal Joes that say, I'm just gonna go shoot up a whole grocery store. There's something else that's twisted up there most of the time.
Well, we were talking about this before off camera, but what do we do? So I don't want to be here talking to you about this. I'd rather be talking about how we deal with other issues. How do we stop this? And what I said to you was that once people hear now that it was a disgruntled employee, they go, okay, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And then we move on about our day.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because there's always a reason for it. What, is that an okay reason he's disgruntled? Of course not.
So, but people.
That's a good point.
But people, instead of a random act where somebody just walks in and starts shooting people. I mean, think of some of the horrible things that have happened in this country. Mm-hmm. The thing at Sandy Hook. Mm-hmm. I can't even fathom.
Right.
I can't even get there. Mm-hmm. So when are we going to put mental health to the forefront and start trying to figure some of this stuff out? And how do we get word out there? And I know they're out there anyway. Mental health cooperative. There's a number of mental health not-for-profits and facilities that can deal can help people try to deal with their issues. But how do we as a country finally get a grasp on it? And you know what's weird, Nick, is that, I mean, we don't want to be talking about it. Mm-hmm. So, if we react to something that did happen, we don't want any of this to happen. We don't want to be talking about this.
Right.
So what you got to do is figure out, if we can, in this country, with the situations that we have, how do we get people who have mental health conditions?
And it's happening right here. Yeah, I mean, you should be proud of what's happening in this very city with Sheriff Darren Hall and the new jail. And he's one of the sheriffs at the forefront nationally of setting up, the mental health unit at the jail. Because he sees it. It's either substance abuse or it's mental health. And if we can deal with that, we're going to reduce the number of folks coming into the jail.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing here. So when you say, what can we do? I mean, that's a start anyway.
It's a good start. I really appreciate what the sheriff has done. That's really good.
Right, yeah.
We need to get more people they're still working through that process, but more people veered in. Instead of being incarcerated, get them into mental health treatment.
Yeah, because just locking up someone who's off their noodle and needs help is not going to do anything.
Well, if you lock them up, they're going to be out in a couple of days. And they're going to be back out on the street. You didn't treat their problems.
Yeah.
So you got to deal with that. The police and the mental health cooperative, that cooperative relationship, important. And I think is building, and let's see what we can do with that. So if somebody gets a call to somebody who has a mental health issue, it's not just the police, but it's somebody who is trained to be able to handle that situation.
I agree.
But we just need to have, I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. I think we need to take a serious look at it. I'm sick of talking about these things. We need to figure out some way to deal with it. But I'm not a mental health expert. We need to sit down with people who are and figure out what to do.
Let's go to Linda. Linda, good morning. Hi, Linda.
Good morning, fellas.
Good morning.
I have two things. As a former 40-plus years teacher in Metro, I think they need to start with mental health evaluation in the elementary school because I know, along with all the other teachers I've worked with, we have seen issues with children that might become worse as they get older. And a lot of times we were not valued with our faults. So I think we need to start with elementary school with some mental health stuff. Also, this is for the mayor. There has been a big controversy over in the Green Hills area where I went to college about a bear cave. I don't know if Jim Shulman has heard about this or not, but it's over on Scenic Drive. And if you go back into Metro Archives, you can find that they actually had a park out there. It kind of runs, it covers a great deal of land from Scenic Drive over to the east of Leland Lane, close to Maplehurst and all that, and David Lipscomb College. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to keep a piece of property from being sold, how can we get to historic commission, or who do they need to start with? They've tried the council person to no avail, and where do they need to go to start working on getting just maybe the cave itself preserved?
Okay, yeah, and I think we both would agree that mental health for young children, that's a good thing. But why don't you address her issue on the cave?
The bear cave, I knew there was stuff back there, but I didn't know there was a bear cave.
I didn't know that either.
So I think you and I are going to have to go out there and take a look at this
no,
thing.
you can go in the bear cave.
Well, okay, well, you stand outside.
Stand outside and watch guard.
Yeah, if I come running, you take off.
I don't have to outrun the bear.
You just have to outrun me. I got that. So if you want to try to deal with trying to protect a piece of property, I'd call the Nashville Historic Commission, the Metro Historic Commission, and tell them what this thing is. I can talk to the council member. Sounds like they've tried that way. But I think what you need to do is get a group of people who are really concerned about this thing and actually make calls and send emails to the council member, to the council, all the council members, and say, wait a minute, we're getting ready to possibly ruin part of Nashville's history. Carol Busey is the Metro historian. I think you should call her. Get people engaged and get people involved. That's how you stop these things, if that's what your concern is.
Awesome.
Going back to the first thing, the mental health evaluation, Nick, I mean, I've seen, and Linda's former teacher, I believe, I've seen kids act out who are in
You
kindergarten.
can sometimes tell, and of course it's imperfect. I'm no doctor, but I've seen friends' kids, I've seen kids in the neighborhood, and you can just see in the bunch, and you can kind of tell which ones might have some issues later. And sometimes it has to do with their home life. Sometimes it just has to do with their own body chemistry. But you can tell some of the kids that you're like, this fella or this little girl needs help, or it's going to get bad when they get older. Listen, we got to take a break on that note. And when we do, we can elaborate more, but we also have more phone calls. If you'd like to join us, 737-7587. We'll update you on the very latest as well on the active shooter situation since resolved at Smile Direct Club Warehouse this morning in Antioch, which, just as we're going to break, reminds me, I talked about the other mass shootings, all 3 of them in Antioch. Coincidence? We may talk about that as well. We'll be right back after this.